Hello and welcome back to our Carrier Product Update series. Today I'm joined by a good friend of mine, Tom Stein from American Trust Administrators. Tom's the National Sales Director at ATA. Welcome to our series.
Thanks for having me. I gotta say, I dig the new studio, man. It feels good in here. Yeah,
it does. It does. It took a long time to get things set up, but we got proper lighting, proper cameras, and microphones and all.
Yeah,
so,
we're big leagues.
Yeah. Well, for the agents out there that are not familiar with American Trust Administrators, or ATA, as we lovingly call them here at Legacy, ATA is a small group level funded product. I know that we use the ATA as a resource for groups as small as 5 employees throughout most of the states, and it kind of varies from state to state. But it's a really competitive product. The underwriting is your traditional looking at health statements, going through that process. There's no real restriction on industry. Tom, what are some of the other things that we can talk about with regard to ATA, with regard to the plan designs and the product itself?
Sure. So on ATA, you sound like you're pretty educated on it. But
I may have started my career.
I don't know. Did you work there for a while?
I did, yes.
But we're ATA. We are you already kind of hit the nail on the head. We're a small group level funded plan administrator. That's all we really do. We are focused in that space from 5. We can go up to 100, but really 5 to 50, 5 to 70. That's where we play. Different states have different sizes, as you mentioned, and you guys know the kind of what caveats are which state. Like Colorado has a $20,000. There's some stuff that we have to play with to get certain states played with stop loss. But the big thing with ATA is how we kind of handle our aggregate attachment point, which for people working with you, most of them probably know what that is.
We call it the claims bucket.
Yeah, there you
go. Yep.
Yeah, so how we handle the claims bucket, and then also how kind of fluid we are in plan design. So everything is built on a matrix at ATA, so there's no set canned options. It's whatever you want, you can choose from the matrix, and it kind of pushes it down the assembly line of our underwriting, and then we come out with an answer for where we're going to be on that. It gives you tons of control. And then from the broker standpoint, it really gives you a better shot at doing an apples to apples, which it gives you the first step in that hurdle. So if you are looking at an apples to apples comparison, then you can really see, all right, is this going to be an option at all? Should I continue to chase this rabbit? Or is this one just better with where it is? And that takes a lot of the guesswork out and makes life a little bit simpler. Being able to do apples to apples.
Oh, for sure. I know just the ability to customize the benefit plans that we're putting together in an ATA proposal gives us really the opportunity here at Legacy to match up as close as possible to whatever plan design we're trying to match up to, or if we're trying to hit a target premium, there are tweaks that we can make within that plan design that really get us there, and that's a big advantage for ATA. Not only with regard to the plan design, but for agents that do understand the concept of self-funding. Some of those components, we've got the ability to run different specific levels. Mm-hmm. We can run different specific and aggregate contract, so we don't have to have. If we don't want a 1218, we don't have to have a 1218. There are ways to really customize all of those components, giving, I think, most small employers are in a level funded contract with a carrier model where it's canned.
It's got a push down channel.
Yeah, right. And with ATA, I know that we can customize those components so that if you do have a group coming off of a plan, that they understand the components, they understand how self-funding works. They're a more sophisticated buyer. We could do, if in those terms, we could do a 12-12 aggregate with a terminal liability option, mm-hmm. and you can't find that in a 5 life case.
Yeah, exactly.
With most self-funded options, so I do like that approach.
And one of the reasons that we have that, and this is something that we're kind of proud of, is ATA came into the level funded space a while ago, and we've been serving these clients for quite some time, and actually. 2022 will be our 50th year in business. Now, we haven't been doing small group level funded, obviously, for that entire time. ERISA wasn't around.
Sure.
But, we're pre-ERISA, which I think is pretty cool. And next year we'll be 50 years in business serving the small group space, which
wow.
I don't know anybody else who's still independent who has been serving their clients in that space for that long. So to what you just mentioned, which is 12/12 TLO, yeah, that's an older school way to approach it. There's some benefits to it. There's some
Sure.
challenges, but it's something that you don't see that we still have, because we've always had it. So why get rid of it? It works in some situations. So if you know what you need, then let's play with it and let's build something better.
Sure. I mean, for again, a sophisticated buyer or even a sophisticated broker that understands, hey, on a 12/24 or a 12/18 contract, you're prepaying for the exit strategy every
Mhm.
year. And so
Yeah.
if you flip it to a 12/12 or it rolls to a 24/12 at renewal, and you've got terminal liability as an option to buy at the end, those could be
Especially if you're coming in with a rich benefit package. Then
Mhm.
if you need to insulate yourself against rate increases because of spend, you can buy down that benefit package and then insulate yourself against the higher levels twice.
right.
Right? Which is, but again, it takes someone who understands small group level funding, and then also is going to sit and actually educate their client on it, right? And frankly, there's a lot of the market who doesn't. There's some that do, and they're the ones that benefit.
Yeah.
So it's that's a very specific example. Yeah, you bring that one up. But yeah, 12/12s are an option that can be fantastic.
Yeah.
But you got to know what you're doing going in.
Yeah.
So.
The other thing that I think maybe surprises a lot of agents when we talk about new case submissions. So we've got agents that are selling their first group with ATA ever, and we get to the what we call internally the employer app, what ATA refers to as the single employer plan specification
Yeah, that's
application
exactly right,
form. There's a box on there that always brings up a great conversation with agents, and that is, does the group want to have minimum funding? And then that really gives us the opportunity to talk about the difference with ATA versus, say, a carrier model level funded program. You can maximum fund to the maximum liability, or you can flip it the other way. And can you talk us through
Sure.
how minimum funding works?
It's, again, this is going from the larger group model and then saying, look, if this works for the big guys, why not give our guys or the people that we serve the same options to realize value? And the big difference is if you're minimum funding, you're paying your claims as they come in, right? If you're maximum funding or level funding, you're just setting a single premium. So there's the trade-off right there. One is simpler, but one has some massive cash flow advantages. And that's exactly what you're getting, because, not to get too technical, but you're holding it on your books. Now, this is kind of technical, but you're holding it on your books as an unfunded liability that will or will not hit. And so if that does not hit, then that unfunded liability that's pre-funded has not hit the benefit trust agreement.
Right.
Holy smokes. You've got cash that's free from the benefit trust restrictions, all because you're minimum funded.
Yeah.
And that can be big money. Now, you can do it the other way, and if you level fund and it's not used, then all that money comes back to you. But unless you're running at 12/12, you've got run out to wait through.
Yep.
Right? And then at the same token, it's already hit that benefit trust. So then you have to spend it on employee welfare. And then there's other ways you can, and as you know, you can kind of work it out down channel, but then that's going to take more time.
Yeah.
So, it's another great option that you have if you want a minimum fund. And the companies that I think do this well are like accounting firms.
Yeah.
They understand accrual accounting.
Sure.
So just let them understand it.
Right.
Give them the option, and then they can keep it in their back pocket, and then those dollars are then cash flow free.
Right. Well, not only that, but I almost think about it in these terms. So, the focus with most of these carrier model level funded programs is how much of the refund of the surplus are you getting back? So, are you getting half of the surplus back? Are you getting 2/3 of it back? Is it tied to the fact that you renew, or you have to?
Is my money held hostage?
Yeah, is it an admin fee credit? Is it cash? What is it? And with ATA, we get that question, and we talk about in one of our classes we talk about how to spreadsheet self-funded plans, and I always talk about the fact that there's so much that gets left off the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
If you're just showing rate, you're missing a great opportunity to talk about how self-funding plans work. And with ATA, one of the pieces that always gets really difficult to really lock in with a buyer is it's your money.
Mm-hmm.
This is when we're setting up a self-funded plan with ATA. All of the dollars going in that claims bucket, those are plan assets, 100% owned by the employer's plan. So It's not a question of how much you get back and when you get it back. It's your money, and by transitioning that train of thought to say minimum funding, now it's not a refund, right? Now it's, hey, I'm hanging on to my money and only sending it when it's needed.
Yeah.
And that's a different mindset, probably more of a graduated strategy for smaller groups anyway. Ones that maybe build a reserve, and you're not refunding. ATA is not refunding that money every year. It's sitting in that account.
Mhm.
It stays in their claims fund until they pull it out or until they use it, which is
Yeah.
a different mindset, I think, for a lot of brokers.
Well, you already kind of, and I was thinking about minimum funding from year one, but minimum funding from multi-year strategy is what you're referring to, and that again, it's more simple than year one, obviously, but
Sure.
you realize the same benefit.
Yeah.
Right? Is that it's their money, and kind of what you said is that any dollars that are unused in that ag account or the claims bucket, that's theirs.
Yeah.
So if they want to use that for next year's, okay, go ahead. If they want to use it for ancillary lines, okay, go ahead. Like whenever, this doesn't hold every year, but last year we were around 70% of our plans had a refund, right? Which is pretty good. So when you go in and you say, hey, we've got $22,000 here, Mr. Medium small time employer,
Yeah.
that guy's tickled pink with you.
Right.
And in that moment, and yeah, it's in the benefit trust agreement, and you can minimum fund to kind of get it out, and you can do some kind of cool stuff. But you can also say, all right, your people were prudent. Let's add some ancillary lines, and it's not going to hit your cash flow at all because
Right.
you've already paid for it because it's your money.
Yeah.
Like that. I don't know. That's something that I'm proud of with ATA, and I don't know. I grew up, and I mean, yeah, I kind of grew up in the business, but like I didn't know that was as a younger guy. I didn't know that was so unique.
Yeah.
In that it's their money, period, not ours.
Yeah.
And that's a big shift.
It's funny you say that because I started my career at ATA and
Yeah.
you ended my career at ATA in your position, and when I left to go to the evil side of the broker world, I get the good side, right? The good side of the broker world. I thought every plan worked that way.
Mhm.
I learned what I know about self-funding, hanging around the wooden doors of ATA and talking to the people that wrote the policies.
Yeah.
And, made sure the contracts were sound, and getting out into the broker world and realizing there's a fully insured side of this business,
Sure.
which is a completely different animal, and then meeting other brokers who that's all they know is fully insured, trying to really transition to self-funding. I think the ACA has done, wonders for that conversation.
Mhm.
With regard to ATA's program, it really hasn't changed over the last at least the 22 years that I've known
Yeah.
the program. It's not changed. It's been it's the same consistent drumbeat of
Mhm.
you can max fund, you can minimum fund, you can customize the plan designs, you can pick from multiple networks. You've got a couple different national networks that we can choose from.
Yeah,
You've got
I
some
mean,
regionals.
good.
What's the network situation?
It really depends on the state. And we've got, I think, over 45 different PPOs that we can play with.
Wow.
But there's some big guys. Like Cigna's probably a pretty big one for a lot of people. We also have RBP. We've got a couple repricers that you can play with depending upon the area.
So RBP being reference-based
Yeah, sorry,
pricing.
reference-based
Sure.
pricing. Yeah, or as I like to call it, MOM, multiple of Medicare.
Sure.
Because who doesn't like MOM?
Yeah.
But,
That's good. I
yeah,
have to use
it's not
that
my
one.
line. That's Sterling Benefits up in Connecticut. But I love that line.
Yeah.
The
Who are you using for the negotiation or the repricing on the back end for Medicare?
depends on the area. We've got Zealous and then 6 Degrees.
Okay.
So those are the two options that we have. And there's some cool things about either one of them, but it really is kind of like location dependent on which one, in my opinion, fits better. It's kind of like PPOs, RBP. This is kind of nerdy stuff, but I mean, we're on a podcast about
Sure.
nerdy stuff. So yeah, the RBP, in my opinion, is going to continue to evolve and become more and more like PPOs. In that there's all the RBP repricers are fighting for direct contracts.
Yep.
And when they get those, then the balance bills issues that go from a small percentage chance to a even smaller percentage chance, and then it looks and feels and tastes more like a PPO.
Yeah.
Well, different ones are doing it well in different areas, and so that's That's something that over the next 5 years we're going to see, I would assume, in that space, which it's cool. I mean,
I know 7, 8 years ago, I think we had some folks in here from different organizations talking about RBP, and we said immediately we didn't want to be on the front of the train talking about RBP because it was going to be pretty messy. I think what's happened over the course of the last 7, 8 years is you've got payers or repricers like 6 Degrees, like Zealous, the repricers out there that are doing those negotiations on the front end, getting those contracts. It's a great time to talk about RBP, and we've got experience, at least with ATA. We've got experience with 6 Degrees. I know there is a process for how you handle RBP claims that do go to balance bill, and I think it's important for agents to know balance bills are. I've seen balance bills in PPO contracts.
Yeah, it can happen.
So balance bills aren't unique to the RBP situation, but they are more prevalent in RBP. What do you do? What does 6 Degrees do to help a member once a balance bill hits?
Sure. So, and this is not just with 6 Degrees, but in general, if you have a balance bill, the first thing you have to do is tell the TPA about it.
Yeah, got to know about it.
That's the big thing. And once you get over that hurdle, everything becomes a lot easier. But whenever you're placing cases, I'm going to speak directly to the brokers here.
Yeah.
Whenever you're placing a case on RBP, this is our kind of experience, is that if you have 12 members in the group, on average, you're going to get one balance bill. Now, your experience may be different. You may get none. You may get some higher number. But you need to have the members of that group really coach, saying, when you get this, let us know. And then the guys will go to work. But that's the biggest problem, is that we got to know about it before we can get into action.
Yeah.
And then after that point, the negotiation starts. They send over a kit saying, all right, here's what we paid you. Here's why we think it's fair. And on our plans, we paid 150% on hospitals.
Okay.
And so, what the first statement is, look, you accept, let's say it's $10,000 from the government, we're paying you 15. What's the deal here?
Yeah.
And at that point, a lot of them actually go away, right? And then after that point, if there's still pushback, then it becomes a longer negotiation.
Sure.
And then there's, it's just what it is.
Yeah.
But
no, I think our challenge as an industry is we've conditioned patients and we've conditioned members to ignore the balance bill. If you just wait long enough, the insurance is going to send you an explanation of benefits that shows that claim has been processed. And with RBP, it's really breaking that conditioning, trying to get them to understand that you can't ignore the balance bills. When they come in, you've got to let somebody know. You got to know what a balance bill is, first of all.
Yeah.
And you got to let somebody know about it. But I think over time, it is becoming more and more prevalent. There are more and more administrators like ATA that offer RBP plans, and there are bigger employers using RBP as their tool.
And I don't want to make this whole thing about RBP, but it is kind of it's exciting. That's the big deal, is that when you get these larger employers, or if you're a broker and you have a larger employer where you've got 500 members in a smaller city, like a 50,000 person city, you've actually got buying power, right? And so if you approach the RBP repricer and say, hey, I've got this group, I want to take them over, but I want a direct contract, they'll actually, sometimes they'll sit down with you. And if you can get that done, you have the best of both worlds, right? You're inflationary resistant because medical trend has been running hotter than Medicare trend. So your increases are going to be lower by definition.
Yeah.
And then at the same token, if you're the broker in that town, then you can also go out and say, all right, I now have a direct contract. I'd like to bring on more members on this price.
Yeah.
And you're the only game in town. That's the beautiful part. And that's the kind of thing that I was at a conference recently and we were talking about the Wall Street mentality, which I'm not that kind of guy, right? Yeah. And there's a lot of consolidation in the business, and there's a lot of people who are kind of going down that route in terms of brokerage houses. And the big difference is whenever you stay independent, wherever you stay as the kind of customer-centric kind of folks, you can build stuff like that. But it takes a little bit more work and a little bit more time up front.
Yeah.
But it keeps the little guy alive. And so if you can do something like that for your clients, they're going to be better off. And then are also insulating yourself against that Wall Street mentality that's going to do 80% of the work instead of the 100, and they're going to get 20% of the value out of it.
For sure.
And that's that's the big shift. Now, it's not a sexy thing to say that you got to work hard in this business, but it's just kind of what it is.
I mean, it's what it's come to. And I'd say probably all along, it's where it's been, and the ACA, fully insured, community rated, guaranteed issue, table rate kind of plans, almost created a generation of order takers. And so there's an opportunity for agents who do take that consultative approach to come in and show value by having ideas and strategies that really do help manage an employer's plan and their cost overall. So if an agent's out there that's got those opportunities, is thinking along those lines, they've got a book of 10, 12, 25 cases where they've traditionally looked at carrier models or fully insured only or carrier model level funded plans, what would we tell them is the way to identify which prospects are probably the best prospects for an ATA level funded plan?
Well, there's a couple ways you can do that. The easiest way is to reach out to the general agent, and they're going to know.
Hey, that's
right,
us.
well, yeah. There's a reason why you guys are in business, right? It's like you guys provide value.
Remind me to send you a thank you card for that plug there. No, yeah.
I'll expect it later.
Yeah.
And like that's the big thing is that the general agents, they're there for a reason, and they're specialized, and they know the way through the woods, right? And there's some broad strokes that you can use if you want to look at your own book and say, all right, I've got 25 cases, as your example is. Which one of these are going to be best served by level funding, right? And so if you look at your book and you just take the census and you start plugging this in, then you can come up with a simple answer by doing a little bit of calculations. Or, and I think that's why you brought this up, ATA, we did build, so thank you, Jason.
Yeah.
We did build a pilot. It's a level funded pilot that walks through about 6 questions, and then it'll give you a score on how probable it is to place that case, right? It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. And what it does is it places average age, census, SIC, zip, virgin group load, and 2 other questions. So everything that, with the exception of maybe virgin group, everything that you should have as a broker already about your client, and then you can go through and say, all right, is this a great candidate? Is this an okay candidate? Is this a bad candidate? And then you can have that score, and if it's a 0.95 or a very high score, you should really go and really chase that client saying, hey, if we're not looking at this, we should be, right? Because you're leaving money on the table.
Sure.
It's GAs have it from us, and it gives you an excuse to talk to your client, right? B, if you don't shop level funding, say it's a really bad group, it gives you a reason to say, hey, this is why we didn't do that. We ran the reports, and then it covers you from being competed with after the fact and somebody coming in and trying to shake your tree.
Sure.
But it really just gives a lot of the field underwriting expertise to the broker for that exact instance of that case. So we're trying to make life easier, and I think it works pretty darn well.
I'm excited to try it. Because like I mentioned before we got started here, we've got some agents who, they've already got relationships with a lot of the carriers that we market here, but they don't know ATA, and to be able to kind of do an evaluation of their book, I think it's a great opportunity for us to have something to talk about with those brokers, and those brokers to have something to talk about with their clients that they haven't shown them before. Nobody's look. I mean, to be quite frank about it, ATA is not. You're not a major carrier across the country that agents. If you walk into a metropolitan area, there are agents that sell ATA in that metro area, but it's almost their best kept secret. And so, if there's an agent out there who's never seen an ATA proposal, never come against an ATA case, they're the perfect prospect for us, because that means that their market hasn't really been tapped out by a general agent in that area or a broker in that area, and ATA, we find in so many cases can be not just the low, and it doesn't have to be the lowest price, right? It's can you find value in the way that the plan's structured, the way that the plan's delivered? Is it competitively priced?
Yeah.
And if an agent is showing the level funded components that make up the ATA product are the self-funded components, right? The stop loss, the contract provisions, the fact that it is 100% plan assets are 100% owned by the employer. If they can show those things and show the value of ATA's product, even if it's close price-wise, I think it's the better way to go.
Yeah.
So it's really trying to identify which of those cases has got the best chance to get across the finish line, and not chasing the tough to place ones that we all know are tough no matter where we go.
Well, that's what we were talking about, the bottom drawer stuff. And the worst thing that brokers or that people do is work for free.
Yeah.
Right? Is that I do all this work and just to come up with that case isn't going to work. That place isn't. We're not going to be able to place that case.
Yeah.
That's rough for everybody.
Yeah.
So let's do a little bit of kind of housekeeping up front, and then save everybody time on the backside.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Penny in a pound kind of deal.
For sure. And competitive comp, it's flexible. A couple of the other things that I know that there's no. You guys pay on the generally as a percentage of the stop loss, or I'm sorry, the fixed cost total, which is the stop loss premium and the admin fees, or we can convert that to a PEPM, or we can add a PEPM on top of the stop loss comp. So it's pretty flexible. I think most agents are pretty surprised when they see the flexibility in the comp. Generally speaking, they're put in a box and told these are the parameters and restrictions. And then from an industry perspective, there are some industries that are ineligible, but for the most part,
we're pretty broad. If you're looking at really industries that we aren't going to play well with, you mentioned the ACA here, and this is kind of a simple tool that you can use as a broker. Is if you've got a group that's super high risk, right? Stop loss isn't really going to like that.
Right.
So think. We were talking about fish in Alaska, right?
Yeah.
So think about fin fishers in Alaska, like those guys' deadliest catch. That's a really tough SIC for stop loss. Nobody wants to touch that.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
Underground mining, that's another one. Over-the-road truckers, not local delivery, those are great, but over-the-road where they're driving from Boston to Austin.
Yeah.
Those guys are real tough risk. So there are some industries that we don't, nursing homes, that we don't play with, but for the most part, we play with most all.
Yeah. And you're doing non-ERISA now
in a couple of states.
In a couple of states, I know. And we tend to play a lot in that market with some agents, which has been it's been a tremendous opportunity for us to say, hey, ATA is another option here.
Yeah, because and on non-ERISA groups, you tend to have so much money in their claims account. You're like, why are you not going? Like, come on, goofball! Like, there's a lot of money here that you can save for the city or for the school or whatnot. That really pays off over time.
Yeah.
Those are healthy groups.
Yeah.
Or I shouldn't say healthy groups in terms of like their loss. I'm saying in healthy groups in terms of where their aggregate dollars are going.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. And they're generally got higher premiums to start with.
Yeah.
So to be able to, to really be able to pull that together and put something in front of them that makes sense in a self-funded capacity, I think is phenomenal. So, so I think ATA overall for us it's a great partnership for us. We've got agents that are starting to, they're starting to see the value in the product. We could talk. You and I could talk all day about the industry,
couple nerds,
fishing, bourbon, what have you. But let's wrap things up here by just inviting agents out there. I think as you're looking at your next prospect, keep ATA in mind. As you're looking at those ATA proposals, understand that those are they are customizable. You don't have to pick from a preset plan design. There are ways to make the benefits work to get to the price point that you're looking for, so that you've got a good story to tell. Tom, I thank you for being on the series. It's always fun to have you. Any parting thoughts for agents as they head out into the great unknown?
Well, just realize that if you don't go overserve your clients, somebody else will. So that's something that my dad always tells me. But I think it's true in just about every industry and every opportunity. So go out, do it, and do it well.
Wise words. Thanks again for being on, and thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time.